Hello, we're live. Welcome, one and all. Oh, I gotta change the chat color again. God damn it. I really hate... I really need to swap out of... I really need to swap out of, Streamlabs. I've just been so lazy.
Honestly.
So lazy. Well, another hard part about it is I use a lot of the themes you can get on Streamlabs, like their Premiere service or whatever. So I dress up all the new streams and everything like that. So
fair.
But we're back. It's been a crazy week. Elon Musk has bought Twitter.
Yeah, honestly. I'm surprised that happened.
Everyone is.
Yeah, I thought it was just gonna, they were gonna just block him out from it. Guess not.
Nope. He offered him more money than any normal man should be able to offer. Man. It's crazy. And, we were just talking about it, but Twitch is going to be changing their overall business model. And, well, for most people, it's not a great thing because they're going to be pushing ads, and they're going to be reducing the AdSense for some of their partners. A little secret from someone who's done it. Not all partners, not everyone who worked or who had like a thing there got that amount. They didn't get like the 70-30 split they had on there. Like when I was in the associates program, it is 50-50 still. So I don't know. It's I think they're really just gonna make people not want to watch on Twitch, and then they're also hurting the people who make the most money for Twitch. And honestly, people are just gonna go to YouTube because YouTube's got a streaming service, and you can do a lot of the same things there. The only thing you can't really do is you don't get the same like badges and emote stuff you get on Twitch normally that people really like.
Yeah. And the live stream culture is way different. That's what brings a lot of people into Twitch streaming. Is the culture around it.
It is. It's a very different beast, but if they do this, YouTube's just gonna be like, hey, I see weakness. Come to YouTube.
Imagine if this is one of the best cases of industrial espionage. Where a YouTube exec who's gonna jump ship and hop right back onto YouTube made this plan and sold it to all of them.
Right.
I doubt it, but that'd be very funny.
That would be really cool. But yeah, so it's we got a lot kind of going on right now, and it's pretty crazy. With everything that's been happening, we've been doing a lot here on the channel as well. I mean, the last 2 months we've shifted over from doing just only Pathfinder stuff and doing Pathfinder tabletops to doing some variety content, and I think it's been better overall because honestly not much more people than normal are watching the new variety content we're pumping out than we're watching our Friday games that we were doing. And in fact, I think we've been attracting more people than normal to the channel because there's a bunch of people who really, really love their particular tabletop game, and when they catch wind that someone tried it out, they want to see what they think about it. So I definitely have heard a couple people who joined the channel who were, big Shadowrun fans who are now with us. And I don't think Lancer got that much, but then Lancer isn't as big unfortunately.
No, it's not. The game's fucking great, but it's no like Shadowrun.
Yeah, it's just, you know, I legitimately think that Lancer is a really good RPG, and I think it's better built than most RPGs currently.
It deserves a lot of love.
New. It does. I think it deserves a lot more than it has currently. But Shadowrun was fun, and kind of what came up in a lot of the interviews we had was the lore for Shadowrun is really interesting. And that was pretty much a universal thing that most of the players talked about in our interviews, was Alex included here, that the lore is just really interesting and there's not another game like it. So
it's really unique. But good lord, is it fucking dense. It needs like a path builder or like a comp con or something.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and then you like an Archive of Nethys, you know, because like I do very vividly recall when I started playing Pathfinder for the first time, I really struggled because the book, finding a particular rule is a nightmare in Pathfinder, in the core book, and we don't think about it anymore because we use Archive of Nethys a lot, and Archive of Nethys is really easy. You just type in whatever rule you're looking for, bim bam boom. You get a page that has, you know, exactly what you're looking for on it, and you can research it there. But when I didn't use Archive of Nethys, I remember very vividly how much of a nightmare it was going through and looking up the system.
God, yeah, I remember like sitting in your guys' place and just waiting for you to find the rule, like the book.
Yeah.
You'd be like, all right. Okay, it's in the place where it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
In the wrong spot. Tells you to go to a page, and then that info's not on that page.
Yeah.
Just fun tabletop things.
Yeah. Lancer, you can find everything pretty easy. You know, like they had a very concise section where all the rules could be found. But Lancer's not as deep as Pathfinder or Shadowrun, so you know, it's kind of that thing of the more dense the system is, the more flexibility and the easier it is once you understand what's going on. We're actually going to talk about that a bit today, because for those of you who are not in the tabletop community, or at least as deep as, you know, I am, there's been a shift. There's been a lot more players kind of coming over from D&D to the Pathfinder community, both Pathfinder 1E and Pathfinder 2E. And the 1E I'm not as familiar with because I'm not as in that community, and there's been a little bit of antagonism between Pathfinder 1E and 2E. And I very much prefer 2E, so it's just not a border I cross all too much. Let me try something here. I feel like... Nope, okay, good. But it's been a very common thing, and I think there's probably 3 major reasons why people want to shift over from D&D 5e to Pathfinder. But Alex, can you guess one of them?
Just overall the rules are better in Pathfinder.
That is one of them, yeah. D&D 5e has gotten to the point where the system bloat and the oh goodness, what's the term when newer content is better than...
Oh yeah, power creep
has been pretty insane, honestly, for D&D 5e. I mean, it wasn't until Tasha's that like playing a ranger really felt even viable.
Jake, I'd say it's like a pretty good example of power creep. Like, make something that was pretty garbage, like actually useful, so people who like that class can enjoy it more.
Yeah. But there's just been a lot of there's been a lot of that. There's been a lot of people who they look at D&D 5e and they're like, I really like D&D 5e, but I wish it had more of this or had more of that. I wish item crafting was better or whatever. And then they see Pathfinder and they're like, oh my god, everything I wanted in D&D is there in Pathfinder. And it's honestly not even that much more complex of a game system when you really look at it.
It's just more complex than 5e.
Well, yeah. Well, the thing is that just more goes into a character build than it does in 5e. Like feat choices, for instance. Like in D&D 5e, classes don't have their own feat list. You're picking from a generic pool of feats meant for all classes, you know, and that's either instead of an ability increase or along with the ability increase, depending on what your DM does. And speaking of the DM, the big thing about the DM is they have to make up so many rules to make D&D work to the level that a lot of players enjoy it at currently. And the depth of rules that Pathfinder does actually makes it easier to play than D&D 5e, because in D&D 5e so much more weight is put on the DM once you get past the early phases of it. Like, the more proficient someone becomes at D&D 5e, the harder it is to run D&D 5e.
True.
And it's such a weird way of going about it. So yeah, overall, it's just the rules work out better. Everyone tends to look at D&D and be like, I like this game, and I have a lot of good memories of this game. But it just gets to a point where I wanted to make a character like this, but there wasn't rules for it, so my DM had to make it up, or I don't know what to do with downtime days, and it feels like a very pointless system. Not only that, but for DMs, the challenge rating system for D&D is a nightmare.
CR is the dumbest thing ever. It's so stupid. I don't know why they haven't just altered it when the prevailing opinion is that it's garbage and makes no sense.
Because they don't know how to change it.
Fair.
That's the problem. They don't have a strong enough design principle for their monster design to change it, because they have some of the same stuff that Pathfinder does, which is, you know, at certain levels, monsters have certain bonuses, have access to multi-attack, yada yada yada. What they don't have, though, is, well, one, D&D's challenge rating system is supposed to be, like, much more difficult for the challenge rating level it is. What I mean by that is, in D&D, when they say here's a challenge rating 1 monster, this is a monster that poses some threat to a party of 4 players of level 1. That was their intent. The problem with that being, action economy messes that math up.
Also, how do you alter it if you don't have 4 players? Why is 4 their scale?
Exactly. Pathfinder is a monster of said level is potentially dangerous to a player of the same said level. And because access to certain magic items are level based in Pathfinder, or should be anyway, for balancing purposes, they can increase monsters at those higher levels with the assumption that the players have certain types of gear to fight them with. Because you get a plus, you should have a +1 striking weapon in Pathfinder at level 3.
Yeah, and by that you'll have like the money to get it too, or at least
Easy.
a solid weapon to slap it onto.
And that means that the monsters will have about 20-30% more health than a monster a level before it, because they're expecting you to be hitting with an extra damage die every time you strike the monster. And it's just, Pathfinder just has a better design principle, and that's why the challenge rating is another problem as well. It's hard for the DMs to understand how to play it. D&D doesn't even know what they want to do with challenge rating. Can you not hear Alex?
Huh? I was hearing myself.
Yeah, I can. Can you not hear Alex, Devin? Oh, okay. I guess you just weren't talking enough.
Fair enough.
But yeah, so... But yeah, in D&D, they also make monsters that are weak for their level. For their challenge rating.
Yeah.
They're like, this is a trash mob, but we have no indication or really system for trash mobs. So we're just going to put them in this challenge rating. So then when you're a DM and you're looking at a challenge rating, you're like, I don't understand. How are these two things in the same challenge rating?
Or, here's a monster in this challenge rating. By the way, for the level that it's at, it's pretty likely it could just, TPK you.
The Banshee.
Yep.
The Banshee is such a nuisance of a monster. And that's another thing as well. In Pathfinder, because of how they do their level system, there's not a chance that a low-level Banshee will actually knock out a whole party, because their proficiencies go up to a point where they can't even fail the check unless they crit fail.
And even then, they might have a feat where it's like, if you crit fail, you don't.
Yeah, you just fail instead, or something like that. So it's it's an absolute nightmare. But there's one, I think, very major thing, talking on a purely mechanical, or at least like system based, that's causing a lot of players to swap over. Do you know what that is?
Cool shit, new books, a company that actually like gives out their materials a lot easier and for less money.
Yeah, less money being free. Which, by the way, the new Book of the Dead is out.
Oh shit.
Yeah, been diving into that. I would have liked to have made a tabletop on the new Book of the Dead, but everyone else has done it already.
Fair.
A lot of people have had it for like 2 weeks, so all those videos are already out. I don't know, maybe we will do like a Book of the Dead like review or something like that.
Or at least chat about it a little bit, see what other people's thoughts on it are.
Yeah. Maybe we get some more people in here as well. We can talk about it a bit today. It's on our archive in Netflix, so you can look up the new stuff there. But so you're right about a lot of those things. But one of the biggest things that players are really struggling with, I feel like, and what is very attractive about Pathfinder 2E, is items, magic items specifically. Pathfinder 2E's magic item system is much more robust.
It's more
There's
fun.
not weird price ranges for items in a certain category.
anywhere from like what 100 to like 5,000. Is that the scale for like lower shit?
Some of them, it gets really wonky.
So dumb.
And not only that, but you're just not getting bled out for gear. You want plate mail? Bam, easy. Like 25 gold or something like that.
It's real cheap.
In D&D 5e, it's like over 1,000 gold. For no good reason.
Got hit with that realization in Celesta. Like,
yep.
Oh, it's so expensive for plate mail.
Yep. And there's no good reason for it, really. Because there's so many other ways players can get stupid high AC if they really wanted it for free. Yeah.
Play Forge Cleric.
Play Forge Cleric. Put some points in Blade Singer Wizard, you know. Yeah.
I play a Blade Singer Paladin who's a pretty good AC. Real fucking good.
Right, and that's the thing, is it's just players, and not only that, but magic items just feel better in Pathfinder. What level do you think you normally would get a +1 item in D&D? Alex?
What was that? Sorry, my thing sputtered.
What level do you think players should get a +1 item in D&D?
Like, that's tough. Like 2 or 3, honestly. Cause like most 5e like combat's already down to a 50-50. Like, oh boy, you made it like a 60% chance I can hit you now. Feels a bit more fair.
Right. And I believe that the +1 item is a level 5 like expectation.
That's really dumb.
That's and really anyone can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what if I remember my 5e days, that was like the expectation for around that level. And that's such a small get for so little. And you're right as well. There's also the 50% problem in D&D, because even for something that your character is supposed to be absolutely great at, a lot of checks come to a near 50-50 chance. And it doesn't really change, like the insane thing, right? One of the highest proficiency bonuses a player can get access to, or typically do in their game, is +5 proficiency. Maybe +6 if you're really going deep in the levels.
Yeah.
And one of the highest stats you can get without like some magic item boosting or whatever is +5. So that's a +10 at endgame. You still need to roll in like the upper 75 percentile, which means you still have like a 25% chance to fail at something your character should be absolutely great at.
Yeah, and like honestly, another way to get around that, which is something I deeply believe for all you 5e DMs, give your players like some like a free expertise.
You know, I think a free expertise at every 5 levels would be pretty good.
It would help balance it out. It's another system that I've done that doesn't break the game. It just means some like 1 or 2 checks are a bit more consistent. Like my bard in one of my 5e games I play has a +14 performance and persuasion. that's just with being a bard expertise, and for performing, he gets a little effect because he has a magic sentient loot. I've done it in my games. It works just fine, giving people free expertise. I've convinced my DM for Friday to do the same thing. So I told him, like, I convinced him that, yeah, it makes no difference. It just makes the game function a little better.
Yep. Because players should be able to easily accomplish something they've designed their character to accomplish. And all right, sure, Keaton Neo. We give our own examples, but we'll take yours. Let's see.
I am curious.
I guess we'll wait for it. But yeah, so overall, Pathfinder, your characters can do the things you want them to do more easily. They're less TKable because of how proficiencies work. Magic items are not a nightmare to run for the DM or the players. And honestly, they're better because what's better, right? A weapon that gives you +1 to hit and +1 damage, or a weapon that gives you +1 to hit and an additional die of damage.
Yeah, that's way cooler. Also, like, the amount of games I've seen of 5e where DMs are like, yeah, I'm really bad with magic items. I either give out too much or give too little. It's almost like, if that's a common problem, you should fix it, like, on the game side.
And the I guess it's the learning curve, but it's kind of different for 5e for a DM, because when you start playing D&D as a DM, it's actually really, really easy. But the more you play it, the more you have to add to the game to accomplish the things you want to do, making the game progressively more and more and more just, you know, difficult to run without just homebrewing the whole system. And overall, D&D 5e's balanced system. There are some weapons that are just objectively better to use.
Yeah, looking at you, if you're going great weapon fighting, just use a great axe. Like, honestly, like, just a D12 with no extra things to wield it. Why wouldn't you take that?
Yep.
Or you can take a D8. Oh boy. Like,
yep.
There's no reason to do it. I mean, you could also argue Greatsword has a bit more like consistency because you're at least rolling minimum 2.
Mm-hmm.
But like, yeah, Greatsword, Great Axe, both really good picks.
I forget the fourth reason.
Fair.
It's a new system. No, I don't think.
I think that might be a good reason.
I don't, because new systems are coming out literally all the time, and a lot of them flop.
But new system that's carrying over people, and people will want to try new stuff. It's a thing of like, oh, this is new and popular. I can see that being
really not that popular.
It's
or
more
at least
popular
it
than
wasn't.
Lancer.
It is. Well, it is
More
now,
popular-
but like, let's talk about Shadowrun 6th edition. That's a new system, and it's kind of flopping hard. The difference is Pathfinder 2e is a good new system that works really well, and I think it revolutionizes a lot of the D&D style, like, gameplay.
Yeah. I still think if you slap a new tag on something, people are more likely to just go and try it.
I mean,
Because
yeah, I
it's
agree
more
that that's why they'll try it, and I do agree that a new system will get your players to try it. I disagree that that's why players are actually jumping over, because just being new isn't good enough to make players play a game system any more than a couple sessions. D&D, like, Pathfinder 2e is a legitimately really good system. It's an absolutely amazing system, and so when the players try it because it's new, it works really well. I do think being new helps Pathfinder 2e, but I don't think that's a reason why a game does successful or become more successful at all. It's not like video games where a newer game is just kind of like a generally expected better game, because that's not what it is for tabletop at all. New games come and go all the time because their game systems are a little bit flawed, or they just don't have enough attracting features. It offers lots of character customization. I 100% agree with that one. There's more character customization in one level of Pathfinder than there is in 5 levels of D&D.
Yeah. I love how many levels you're just like, oh, I leveled up. What do I get? Nothing of note.
I'm a wizard. I got 1 spell slot. Woo! You know, it's also crazy, and it's something that I didn't really think about until just now. In Pathfinder, you also get skill increases. In D&D, you can't even improve skills or learn new skills unless something tells you can.
Yeah, there's no such thing as learning new things. You can't learn new things as you grow as a person. What? It's impossible.
So, you don't even get to pick skills. Pathfinder comes with 4 sets of feats. They get ancestry feats, they get skill feats, they get general skill feats, which do some more standard, like, actual character improvements, like, to their stats. And then they get class feats. On top of all that, they also can improve their attributes without having to sacrifice for anything. Now, we got a fair number of people in here, and I do want to state right now, D&D is not going away. D&D is still going to be the more played system than Pathfinder. I don't feel like that's going to shift in any way in the near future. I don't think Pathfinder will ever overtake D&D.
Also, if you still really like 5e, power to you. Like, fair enough. We play in 5e games. I've had a great time in 5e. But, like, it's cool to admit that, like, the system is kind of flawed.
It's very janky, and that's why a lot of the new conversations that have been coming and going lately has been, is there D&D 6e coming out? Or is it 5.5? What are they doing for it? All that kind of stuff. It's because the designers of D&D understand how flawed their game is, and they want to fix it. I'm pretty sure Wizard of the Coast, though, doesn't want to lose their cash cow or split their market. Because if they come out with a new edition, right, there's going to be inherent player fall off. Or you're going to be increasing your production costs because you're either going to try to make 5e content still and 6e content, or you're going to cut 5e content. And if they cut 5e content and 6e is a flop, they're going to lose players. All that is inherently really bad for Wizards of the Coast, and they want to avoid that. And so, they're going to keep a 5.5, I think, is what I think they'll do.
Yeah.
Because then they're not losing 5e content.
Yeah, honestly. And it's easier to make to brand, guys, we've improved 5e, then we've made a whole new system. I feel like it's easier to market that you've just improved 5e. Or here's 5e2, and it's just called 5.5.
Yeah. And, yeah, 5e is not going anywhere. This video is not saying that Pathfinder is going to be better than 5e or perform better or yada, yada, yada. Like, what D&D 5e provides is a much easier system to get into, to play easily, and to run easily, at least on a casual level. And I think D&D 5e is really a really good example of a casual tabletop game. And for a lot of people, that's all they need.
honestly, Neo, that's something that like drew me to Pathfinder and really want to play it. Is like, man, 5e is like, I've done it. I know the rules really well. And all these characters, I know how to make a character, and they're all really simple. I wish I had more shit. I wish I could just play a D&D, but with more. Oh, what's this looming over the horizon? A new beacon of hope.
Yeah. It's definitely one of those things of like, I 100% agree, and I like, again, King Neo, don't get me wrong, my only thing I was saying was that new systems does not mean performance in tabletop. It never has. It's just one of the facts of tabletop. I agree it will get players to play the game, but it definitely won't make them stick around long enough to make the game actually flourish. Pathfinder 2e, though, I do agree, is D&D but with more heft, and it's optimized better than Pathfinder 1e, and I personally really enjoy it. But the video, it does say, or the topic today is players going to Pathfinder. There's a lot of players who are going to Pathfinder 1e as well, because they love the chunk. They love the heftiness of it. And Pathfinder 1e still has way more content than Pathfinder 2e does. It went on for 10 years, 10 plus years. Pathfinder 2e is still catching up, but oh boy, they make books so fast at Paizo. So I don't think it'll be too long before we're hitting around the same weight class as far as content is concerned. And Kendall, yeah, I absolutely hate that branding idea. They hate making like a higher iteration of a number, so they're just like, we're just gonna call it Dungeons and Dragons. Take out the number, and then we'll go to Dungeons and Dragons X. And
I've never understood that. Like as movie titles, no movie wants to be titled 4 for some reason.
Yep.
And it's just give it the number.
Yeah, it's because a lot of them believe that if you have a iteration or a title that's high, it's gonna prevent new people from coming in, because they're gonna feel like they're gonna have to watch a movie, 3 whole movies before this one. It's kind of like the same thing on YouTube. If you have a live play video that has like a number higher than 2, its the views on it bomb super hard. People just don't want to get higher iterations and stuff. I don't think it applies to tabletop though, because new editions doesn't mean playing the old editions. In fact, playing the old editions might make you more confused trying to move to a new edition. Like, yeah, higher edition numbers just aren't like done in that way.
Yeah, imagine trying to be like, oh, I gotta prep for D&D 6e. Let's go back to first edition. Go back to AD&D.
Yeah. It's just really, I don't know. I hate that idea though, that people are just afraid of higher numbers. I disagree. 5e is kind of a part of the title, and if they get rid of 5e, players will think it's a different game because the general public is stupid.
Yeah, they need to appeal to people. D&D 5e is casual. They need to make sure that people in 5e probably don't know or play any other system, like, they need to appeal to them.
Get your THACO on, yeah, THACO. That was a great system. It wasn't, for those who don't know. So it was the wonky AD&D AC system where you actually wanted to have a negative AC.
What?
Yep.
Huh.
It was a lot of math. You know how we were playing Shadowrun And to determine your physical limits, it was like strength times 2 plus this plus this divided by 3. That was kind of how THAC0 worked.
Interesting. Sounds very weird.
Yep.
I don't know if I'd be into that.
No one was. It was great when it was changed. But yeah, unfortunately, like, the general public, it's already not really marketed as 5e, honestly. Do you think 6e will go more narrative or more crunch? Well, I mean, kind of. Like, so I understand what Kendall's saying here when say it's not remarketed as D&D 5e, because you look at a lot of the, like, the, you know, titles, it'll just say D&D on them, you know. But if you look up internet searches, D&D 5e is way higher than just D&D. So changing the overall idea of it is not going to really change, and a lot of them will say like for D&D 5e, like on the spine of a book or something like that. So like they're just not going to get rid of the 5e part of it is the only thing. And I agree, if they do adapt and change, it's just going to be D&D 5e new or D&D 5e 1.1 or something like that. I don't know. It's just it's just 5e is now a part of it. King Neo says, do you think 6e will go more narrative or more crunch? I think that's gonna be both. I think they're going to.
I'm gonna make a wild guess, a wild assertion here. I think if there's gonna be a new new D&D, they are going to make it more narrative, because what is the biggest fucking draw for 5e? Good old Critical Role, peak narrative, like narrative play. They're gonna highlight like, hey guys, you can play like Critical Role. I feel like that's what they'll do, and probably pay off Critical Role to do some stuff for 6th edition. That is my wild claim, because that is what I would do if I was in charge of marketing.
You know, Alex, sometimes you're just like a savant when it comes to marketing stuff.
I've also studied business. That's an important thing to mention. I am actually a business student too.
I mean, I've listened to business people, and I'm sorry, Alex, there's no contest, but you do say some really good things a lot. You're like a good idea man when it comes to business things. There's always a moment where I'm just like, you know what, he's right. But it's never because it seems logical. It's just because you somehow hit the nail on the head on something. And like, I think you're right. I think that's a possibility. I think it could kill D&D at the same time.
Oh, quite possibly. That is quite possibly a bad idea. But it's so like weird that they just might do it, because there's some exec being out there is like, what are these kids like? They like the crit rolls with the Matt Mercers. Just have it so he writes like a little forward, and he ends it with how do you want to do this, like in the forward, and then I don't know, include some pictures of them in there. That's what the kids like.
Well, my idea on what they would actually do is, you know, like the D&D cover art, right? It's always been like big fantastical battles, the characters running into battle. I think if they come out with something like that, like the idea you're saying, it's just going to be a book cover with player characters on it. Just a bunch of player characters of all different styles, wearing different gear and being of different races. And they're going to really emphasize this is the OC Maker 2000. You want to make your own personal tabletop OC character? This is the way to go. Obviously, they're not going to call it that. They're going to stick to the D&D kind of like idea and brand. But they're going to advertise as if this is where you're going to make your best character ever. Yeah, and that, I think, would sink the game heavily. Because it's not that players like making their own characters for the sake of like making their own characters. They like making their own characters in the idea of what D&D is, like fighting dragons, all those epic battles. They want to see their characters there. But some 80-year-old CEO businessman is gonna be like, they like making their furry characters, so just put a bunch of them furry characters on the cover art of the next book, and it's gonna do terribly.
And D&D does, Wizards of the Coast does a lot of sponsorship for Critical Role. I mean, they had them switch to D&D Beyond to advertise that service. And also, if you watch, like, especially rewatching Season 2, it's very clear, especially really early on, they really don't like it. Like, it's super clear they're not fans, and a lot of times they stop themselves from shitting on D&D Beyond.
Yeah.
Because D&D Beyond it's nice, but it's not as good as, like, a paper sheet sometimes.
Yeah. Let's enter some things in order here.
Yeah.
So let's give the complete BFD. Let's say that Critical Role makes their own game system, has the money to produce it and to produce content for it. Will players switch? Yes. If they can match,
a lot will.
Well, I think a lot. Yeah, I think a good majority will, if they can match what Wizards of the Coast does. The reason why the question isn't a good question is because, one, Critical Role would not drop their biggest cash cow, because at best the Critical cast members are millionaires. They're competing with $1 billion company. It will never happen. They'll never drop that. And I'm not even saying for like purely self-interest. They like D&D and they've built a lot on it. They have no reason to change, and they have no reason to drop really good sponsors as well. It's just one of those things where it's such an improbable situation. It's just not a really great question. But if we give it all the benefit of the doubt, Critical Role can somehow match Wizards of the Coast production power. Yes, I agree. They could take a lot of the 5e players with them.
I have a feeling, if anything, I could see, and honestly, I'd probably be down for it, if they just did like, hey guys, here's Core Book 2. Guess who worked on this one? It's your favorite man, Matthew Mercer.
Yeah, I think
if they did that, oh my god, that shit's selling like hotcakes. And like, especially if it's like, now we have like our homebrew rules are now normal rules. That I could see happening actually, and then a lot of people would. I think a majority of people would hop to that.
I mean, they already have books produced for,
and they're good books too. Like they have a lot of really good shit in there. All the classes that Matt Mercer has made have fucking phenomenal. They're so much fun. Even like Blood Hunter, they're not like great, but they're super fun. The Time Wizard, the Dunamancer, is that a thing? I don't know. I haven't seen much of Crit Roll. The whole Rune Fighter, like all that shit's awesome.
Yeah,
super fun.
Matt has a really good idea for like how to make players really interested in subclasses.
Oh yeah,
and I think
it's because he designs subclasses and classes for a person.
It's true,
and like makes it. It's like, hey, you like this thing? I'm gonna give it to you. Also, I really just like that he couldn't help himself but make Geralt possible to make in 5e.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, and I'm just like, I can make Geralt.
Yeah, I mean, the man who is straight up cosplayed as Geralt multiple times, like, shocker.
Shocker, yeah, but, like, I'm also that kind of person. Like, me and Matt are so similar in that way as well. We just have a lot of the same interests and likes, and we do a lot of the same thing with our tabletop. I'd really love to meet him one day. But yeah, let's continue on. The Pixfish. They better not being compared to an RGM as being the worst thing that can be done. That's paraphrasing, but you get what I mean. Everyone has strength and weakness, but only Matt Mercer is Matt Mercer. I agree. Yeah, I think that is a possible, if they did that, the same thing you just mentioned, Alex, and they exacerbated the Matt Mercer effect.
They would.
I think it could cause some disturbances in the community.
Yeah, because the thing is like, the execs at the top don't care about the Matt Mercer effect. If anything, they'd want to sell the Matt Mercer effect, because that's how you get that money. I also bring up that theory of mine. I also don't really want that to happen. Like that's a big caveat. I just see it happening after seeing shit like that happen repeatedly for so many other different.
I don't know. I kind
I could
of
see it.
I I I kind of want it to happen, but for different reasons.
I would love it if they shifted more narrative and like focused on like telling a good story. But the problem is, even if they make it perfectly worded, like guys, we're not meant. You're not gonna actually be just like Matt Mercer, don't like all going against the effect. People will still read into it and take that away because like not everyone has the best like reading comprehension. They're gonna be like, ah, I could be like Matt Mercer, and then end there, end statement. Anything else is like talking to a brick wall. That
Yeah,
is what will happen, because that's just how people work.
I agree. But the reason why I say I kind of want it to happen is because when they got D&D 5e going in the first place, right? They Wizard of the Coast hired some people who really like D&D. It's like, all right, we need to make a more casual D&D, do your thing. And, you know, they put a bunch of like limitations on it, I imagine, or at least it feels like it because this doesn't feel like D&D. And that's because prior D&Ds failed. D&D 4e more specifically. 3.5 was very popular but was very niche. There wasn't a very huge, like compared to 5e, D&D 3.5 has done nowhere near as well, right? D&D 5e has been wildly successful. If Matt Mercer comes in and says, hey, let me help you make your next edition, I think a lot of the old fogies will be like, this guy's popular at the community. He knows what he's talking about. They might actually let him make a really good game without a lot of the CEO guff. Because that happens, though. It happens in movies where the producers will be like, we trust you. Do what you're going to do. And, you know, there's been directors out there who have made really, really great movies that no one thought would work, or at least none of the CEOs thought would work because, you know, they knew what they were doing.
I have a feeling if that did have it happen, I think there's going to be a massive fucking schism in tabletop because there's a lot of there's a pretty large subsection of 5e that just like hate Crit Roll, hate Matt Mercer. And then there's also a good chunk of like old hat players that hate him too. Like, and so it'd be a big thing. I don't think people make that leap. I think it would split the community in fucking half. Because like on our end, we fucking love that man. Because I do. I love his work. I think he's really good at what he does. He's an excellent pillar of like the community. I don't think that everyone's gonna like fawn over it as much. I think a lot of people are gonna hate it if that happens.
I mean, like, I love Matt as a DM. I don't think he's necessarily the best at making rules, but he's
not the best at like what he does either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think the whole thing is rough, right? It's going to be rough no matter what D&D does. And let's actually jump to an earlier question that I don't think we've really addressed fully by King out here. Do you think 6e will be more narrative or more crunch? I think if they go with a 6e, they will try to blend the two more than they have before. I think the narrative power and the streamlining of rules is what made 5e really good. And making it easier to play, I think, is really good. But they also understand the history of D&D, and they can't remove certain features from it.
No.
So I think what they're going to do is they might just copy Pathfinder in some ways, give the players extra proficiency so they're far less likely to fail checks, and make the system less difficult or less buggy to make players succeed more and like the game more. I think is what they'll do. They'll super casualify it. That's my opinion. And while it's good for narrative, a narrative drive, if there is any chunk, it's going to be a chunky system in the sense that it's going to be such an intricately designed like system that if you change some of the rules, it's just going to fall apart.
Yeah, homebrew
It just
might
won't work
just get
anymore.
deleted.
Yeah.
Which I mean, like, I also would love it because, like, pointed out later, if it was like more Blades of the Dark esque, I don't think they're gonna go that far. I would like it because, like, the social. I would love it if D&D was like, hey guys, here's no social combat. Like the idea of that, add more stuff for like diplomacy and like just roleplay stuff. That would be really fucking hype, honestly. I'd be
Honestly,
super into it.
it'd be revolutionary.
I don't think they do it, but I kind of want them to real bad.
I agree. I
would love that.
I would love to see something like that as well. Let's see here. If they were in love with D&D, as you say, they would have done the branding deal with the show. No. Specifically for the fact that Critical Role did not want to be working under someone else's like demands, and signing a brand deal for D&D specifically rather than like D&D Beyond would have meant that other people might have had to say in how they run their show.
Also, I have a little bit of insider information I can drop.
Okay.
Because I live near Seattle, or at least I did. And that's where Wizards of the Coast is based. And a person that works with my family, I think they're still working with my family. They actually were a community like manager at Wizards of the Coast. Yeah, they dealt with the celebrities, and I can tell you firsthand, the Crit Role team are treated fucking amazing by Wizards of the Coast. They do everything they can to make them happy. So they might not have a public thing going on, but at the very least, there is some good relationship between both of the companies. I've been told a story or two about when they visited. I don't fully remember it, and I don't know if I'm at liberty to mention specifics, so I will not.
That's fair. We don't want to get any legal trouble.
I would like not to.
Or to get someone into legal trouble. So.
Exactly. So I will say, also that person's great. They gave me all their Magic the Gathering cards that they had just working at Wizards of the Coast. They gave it all to me. Pretty cool. I have a lot of Magic cards in my closet now. That's but yeah, no, they might not have a public brand deal, but Wizards of the Coast takes care of Crit Role.
Well, yeah, and like I said, a brand deal is not something you just slap on something and you just keep doing what you're doing. Brand deals, companies will expect you to behave in a certain way, and as someone who is going into content creation, it's something I look into a lot. Whenever you sign any contract, there's an expectation of how you perform. Like, there's an expectation of how you are supposed to act, how you're supposed to present yourself. There's a way you're supposed to curate your content and all that kind of stuff. And depending on how much money they're offering, it gets worse. And companies will always try to fuck you over unless they feel like losing you would be worse for them. So, like Alex said, D&D may have offered it, but then when Critical Role got big, they would have flipped sides and be like, okay, we gotta suck their dick real good here. We'll let them do it their own way, but as long as they keep pushing our content and there's no anonymity, because if there's a fallout between Critical Role and D&D, it would be catastrophic at this point. It would lose a bunch of people. So they're not gonna cause any waves at all. 3.5 wasn't popular because RPGs weren't popular. Curious if it would have done as well today if the player base would have been the same as it is now. No, 100% no. Most of D&D 5e's player base is casual players. Most of those players do not like hard tabletop. And when you go and you watch a lot of other stuff, you'll see players are not interested in the crunch of the game system. A lot of the players nowadays are more interested in their character fan art. They're more interested in playing as their characters, or the idea of their characters anyway. As someone who did Adventures League, I'll tell you, a lot of those players couldn't handle D&D 3.5.
No. I can also attest that many huge fans of D&D 5e have been playing it for years and still don't know how the game plays or how to play their character. That is pretty common in my experience.
Yeah. And another kind of factor of this, and something that's more evident, the biggest money maker on YouTube currently is kids content.
True.
that's because the younger an audience is, the more free time they have to, consume your product. For D&D 5e, that's actually no difference. There's a bunch of kids out there who are young, pre-20s, all that kind of stuff, who want D&D, how their parents get them D&D books and stuff like that. They make great gifts, all that other kind of stuff. A chunkier system is not what it needs, and this is one of the bigger things why I say that Pathfinder 2e, no matter how good the system is, will never beat out D&D 5e, because you just cannot compete with people who have near infinitely more free time than an adult does.
True.
Plain and simple, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Why do you think there's so much candy in shops? Like once you get to a certain age, eating candy becomes really hard.
Yeah, I haven't had candy in like a really long time.
I have it like much more sparingly. But you see candy everywhere. You see candy in small little end tables all over the place in the store. Kids love candy, and parents take their kids shopping with them all the time because they kind of have to. And kids are going to want it, complain about it, and parents are going to give it to them, shut them up. There's a lot of candy. There's a whole aisles dedicated to candy, and most adults really don't consume candy that much. That's the power of children.
Yeah.
And don't worry about being contrarian. That's bringing up opposing viewpoints is good for getting a very solid viewpoint on like what could or could not be. Like, in order to understand something completely, you have to understand why something happens and why something doesn't happen, and then you bring those two together. So don't worry about being super contrarian. Just remember to keep it, respectful, and don't focus on counterpointing points that you agree with. Counterpoint only if you feel like it adds to the conversation. Because I used to be a very like devil's advocate kind of talker, and it doesn't help. It just makes things worse.
No, because you're the guy who wears a full suit to high school debate class, type.
It's just one of those things where you're not adding to the conversation, you're adding needless antagonism. So it's just one of the things to be careful of. So no worries. You're completely fine so far, Kendall. So don't be concerned. For sure, I'm just not convinced they are married to 5e. Are you talking about Critical Role?
Critical Role loving 5. Honestly, from what I've seen of it, the only player who openly had any issues with 5e is not part of the cast anymore. Because they did switch from Pathfinder to 5e. And the only other thing I've heard worth openly talking about issues with 5e was just, rightly so, Laura Bailey pointing out that healing as a cleric is pointless 9 times out of 10. Because of the ping pong effect that 5e has, which is real fucking lame.
It is.
Other than that, they might love it, might secretly hate it. They've given no public inclination that they hate it. So, who knows? They might have some like secret home game where they play a system they like more just to tide them over. For all we know, they might be secret 2e fans.
I could see them appreciate how simple the game can be, and even then, they still struggle with it sometimes.
Yeah, true. Which, granted, the point of Critical Role is the story and the characters, so I don't blame them. Because if you're going to Critical Role for like seeing perfect gameplay and like numbers, I don't know what the fuck you're doing, man. I'll be real.
It's true.
You can just go watch a live play where they actually have that type of play style, and holy fuck, they sound so boring. Yeah, I want to hear people talk and chat and like have relationships. I don't want to see someone like talk like efficiently kill a dragon. That sounds boring.
Yep, I agree. And that that's another thing as well. That's kind of why I dislike players who are so focused on fighting the meta and being the most broken character they can be. Like, conflict breeds narrative. And having battles that you win just barely is more interesting than having battles that you completely stomp. To be fair, it's also cool to really stomp an enemy once in a while.
Yeah, once in a while. Just let your players see how strong they've gotten. Have them fight an enemy that they struggled with early on, and then like show like, oh, look how cool you are. And
Yeah.
they're always like, hell yeah, we're so cool. Give your players a combat or two that's just basically like, hey players, just describe how cool your person is. And they're like, oh, gladly.
Yep. So, you know, Critical Role has done... See, and this is another thing as well. When you look at the overall market, when you look at tabletop in general, and you see what works, what's popular, what people want to watch, most of them are kind of rules light, you know, just kind of going with the flow games and just having fun. The Adventure Zone is a really good example of that.
Yeah.
Just kind of just doing whatever. I don't think I've ever really heard a serious build made in that game. And
no, they're like standard. Because yeah, you know, it's not the point. Honestly, like Adventure Zone is just improv with dice rolls occasionally.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like in like the first season, like there's a lot of like really good like roleplay moments, especially at the end. Like holy fuck.
Yeah, once
like,
I really got into it.
Emotional. But like one of the first arcs, one of my favorite moments is the part where they're in a bank and the fighter uses a constitution check to open a lock.
Yeah.
And then there's just the roleplay moment of like, yeah, we got loot, and then the wizard's like, this is a bank. This isn't a dungeon. We can't just steal shit. This is a place of business. Like that's the stuff. You think of like the fun roleplay moments. You don't think of like, oh, I really like the part where they like read their modifiers for a few minutes.
Yeah. Or remember that time they did like 81 damage or something like that? Like you can remember a player did like a massive hit on an enemy. Fair. But the numbers don't really matter. You just remember I remember when Percy came in and did like over 100 damage or something like that, and that was cool.
I remember the time that in Adventure Zone, and despite spoilers, where Taco forgot that their sister existed. I remember that because fucking ouch, that hurt. Roleplay wise, there's some that's the bit I remember, and like I don't know, I can't see the appeal of watching a live play where you're just watching people like say numbers at each other and not describe or roleplay at each other either.
Yeah,
I can't see the appeal.
And King Neo, no, we're not saying that actually, because if you want to play the Flash in Tabaxi form, that's a perfect way to do it, and I think that would still be really funny. And you're not breaking the game because you're just playing a really fast character, and that's it.
Where's that come? I don't see that.
Oh, I have it on my end. Weird.
What the fuck?
Maybe if I post something here.
Oh, you should totally. I see it now. Yeah, you should totally fucking do that. Hell yeah.
Yeah. Like, there's nothing wrong. That's not the min-maxing we're talking about here.
That's funny. Like,
yeah.
There's if you're min-maxing to like succeed every single bit, but also no, like obviously, like, please do that and let me know how that goes. That sounds really funny. Just like play Sonic the Hedgehog.
That does look like a funny build.
That sounds like a great build.
You know.
And
Wizard. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna like say comment. I have not heard that rumor at all.
Well, what do you mean by becoming its own studio?
For like what? Separate from MTG or like separate the departments? Because like, I mean, if it means the D&D team can get treated a little better. Because they don't get treated great.
So are you talking about Wizards of the Coast separating from Hasbro? Because that'll never happen. Like, a studio for what? Studios are used for different things. But I guess to answer the question, actually, no, we haven't heard about this. But yeah, you know, I wanted to talk about just how great Pathfinder was and why people are going to it today, and this just turned into D&D 5e bashing again. Always happens.
We always do this. Listen, we default to two things. Warhammer because I'm here, or shitting on 5e. It's our brand.
Yeah.
Listen, I can pivot to Warhammer. I can pull out the stops there.
No. I will say again, D&D 5e is not going anywhere. It's a great game. The fact that it's as casual as it is good. And honestly, because it's so casual, having broken builds in it is not necessarily a bad thing. You know? Like, part of... One thing, honestly, that makes D&D, like, as popular as it is the community coming together to... The community coming together to find broken builds. You know how many videos on YouTube have hundreds of thousands of views over broken builds in D&D 5e? It's nuts. There's tons. There's tons. 5 gold pieces. Yeah, you know what? That's why Pathfinder 2e is objectively better than 5e. Because their potions aren't worth 50 fucking gold pieces.
I know. I was looking around and all I saw was the that they created a video game studio with some ex BioWare employees. That's the only studio rumor I saw. I mean, if they start up their own shit, hopefully they get something cool. Cause like, man, Magic the Gathering doesn't give them the best stuff.
Yeah, that's apparently that's the news on it because I just typed it out. They're making a new game studio.
Which, hell yeah. I mean, granted, I hope it's better than the other one they made. Because the other D&D video game they made, from everything I've seen, sucked.
Yeah, I don't know. I just don't trust corporate game studios.
Yeah,
when you see consistently indie game designers performing better or doing better than AAA titles, it's hard to get excited about it. I'd be more excited about listening to one guy making a game completely based on D&D with such a passion for it. I'm like, that's going to succeed. That's what I think.
Wonky dialogue included. Yes. Though I love that part. I think it adds some charm to it. I mean, honestly, I've enjoyed stuff that's put out by like the New Blood indie game studio way more than I have a lot of AAA games. Which, by the way, if you haven't played through the New Blood backlog, you totally should. They're Amid Evil, Dusk, and Ultra Killer. Fucking amazing.
And let's see, happen to see as how I've got more players looking for more difficult campaigns in Pathfinder in Roll20. Yeah, like I said, Pathfinder is growing currently. It's growing and it's getting those players from D&D 5e. It's the sifting, you know, it's like you got a bunch of sediment in a tray and the more you shake it, the hardcore players are falling through the cracks and going to other systems now. And I went to Pathfinder 2e because I wanted a chunkier system than D&D 5e. So, you know, like I'm literal proof that those people are out there and exist. It's just one of those things where it's like Pathfinder will gain more players. Pathfinder 2e and 1e will get more players because 1e I think is really good and I think better than D&D 3.5, but some people disagree, obviously. But Pathfinder 2e I think is getting the most because, you know, they're getting new content, the game is really well designed, the design principles are really solid, and just every book they come out with is just gold. The newest book literally has rules for if your player dies and somehow becomes a ghost, how do you play your character after that point? And you can play your dead character now, which I think is amazing.
Great. That's really fun. That's a cool way to like make it so like, hey, your character might be dead, but we're not going to write you out the story.
Yeah.
If you're into like playing a ghost, yeah, go for it. Then then you can have like a whole ass thing of like my character's like being a ghost. I want to get back to life.
Yeah.
Awesome, amazing. Yeah, that whole thing is a big appeal because like I only got into 2E because you brought it up once.
Yep.
We're like, hey, I've been playing 2E and it's really fun. I'm like, I know what Pathfinder is. All they've heard is that it's like this: you just play a spreadsheet, and then like, and all I've heard is that it's complicated. Then luckily, I have an Android, so I can use the app Path Builder. I don't think I would have liked making a character as much if I didn't have Path Builder. Path Builder makes it super, super easy to go through with it. That sounds like an ad read, but like, nah, I just really like that app.
Yeah, the app's helped a lot. I love Archive and Nethys too.
Yeah.
Archive and Nethys works so well.
They just make it easy to play the game, and which is real nice. Like, because I think actually that is a genius fucking like marketing move too. Because a big thing with 5e or Pathfinder just in general is that people hear Pathfinder, they think overly complicated and like crunchy. Give them as many tools as possible to make it easy. Immediately help change that perception. Honestly, wouldn't totally surprise me if that was one of the reasons why they've been so like helpful in that field, making it easy to like learn and get into.
Yeah, well, I mean, yes, that for sure, 100%. Also, the fact that
because they're nice.
Well, it's more. Paizo releases so many books. If they didn't have one universal source to find it, everything, playing games would be a nightmare because you'd have to bring 15 books with you, and then you couldn't find them. You'd have to look in each book when you needed one rule. Having one unified source is just smart empirically.
Honestly.
So you know,
and it's just nice of them that it's free because I could totally see and would not blame them if they were like, all right, let's do the D&D Beyond thing. You have to buy all the books to access the content.
Hell,
on the site.
I wouldn't even mind paying $5 a month for like a subscription service for Archive and Nethys, honestly.
But they don't.
And that's even better because you know what? Again, kids want to play the games. There's open market for kids. Parents don't care. They're like, no, we're not getting a subscription service for $5 a month, little Jimmy. I remember trying to convince my parents to let me play World of Warcraft back in the day.
I couldn't get a Wizard 101 subscription, even if I tried.
You know, because they're like, no, it's a subscription service. We don't want to pay every month for this. It's
it was like fucking unheard of, like to do that.
Yeah. So you know, works out.
Yeah.
Let's see here. My favorite builds are healers. I don't want to pay 50 gold for 4 HP.
That's
honestly, D&D could just up how much healing the potions do. Cut
up the healing or drop the cost. Or just, up the healing, drop the cost because it doesn't break your game. It actually just makes the function a little easier. Also, drinking a potion should be a bonus action.
I think Devin's butt dialing.
That or, he's probably on his phone, right?
Yeah, I think he's
about to say
his phone.
That could be Celeste.
No, Celeste is. She's sleeping right
That's
over
fair.
here.
It's really funny.
But yeah, I think he's butt dialing. But yeah, 5e made me think I hated being a player. Then I played a game in Pathfinder 2e as a player, whereas that was not the case. You sound like someone who's played a lot of prior editions of D&D, which the 3.5 comment earlier probably indicates. And yeah, I hate playing a character in D&D 5e sometimes because when I level up, it feels so bad. There's nothing that happens.
Like, it's real nice that we have a 5e DM that has helped bridge the gap a little bit between Pathfinder and 5e. He's really made 5e function a lot better.
Yeah.
I don't like 5e as much. Like, I like his version a lot.
Even playing with him though, it's like there are some stuff and it's great, but like I leveled up recently, just became level 4, and I was like, I got like 1 spell slot or something like that. No, I didn't even get a spell slot. I don't know what I got. That's how unexciting the level up was.
Well, you're level 4 paladin, right?
Yeah.
Did you get your bonus or your other increase?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah, means you're getting. You got a ability score increase.
Ooh.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, level 4 is pretty boring.
A lot of levels are pretty boring in D&D 5e. It's sad. Rules for playing a ghoul look really fun. Never thought I'd even slightly care about playing a ghoul before. I really like the book. A new archetype that they put in the book that I find really interesting is playing an exorcist.
Ooh, excuse
and
me.
They
I
got
want
some
that.
really cool things with it. You help spirits pass on, and good or bad, you can help them mercifully pass on and get some benefits for that, or you can force them to pass on in a negative way and cause like a psychic scream attack with it. So it's really cool. They also have lots of bonuses for fighting invisible creatures.
That's an archetype, right?
Yep.
Gonna look into it, cause character idea. I kind of,
And what's even cooler is if you kill an undead, you can do something to get their remnant and use that for power stuff as well.
Shit, this is a hard decision. Is my next character going to be a preacher gunslinger or an exorcist gunslinger?
Both are good.
Why
not both?
Have to, that's a fair point. I mean, I just mean for like archetype. Actually, yeah, one's a background, one's an archetype. Fuck yeah. Holy shit, I'm gonna shoot a ghost in the face.
It's great.
Yeah.
I had a good experience with 5e, but I was slightly munchkin with my builds. No worries, Devin. You're good.
Devin was just assaulted.
You know, honestly, yeah, King. You know what? If you like, I can see that. Like, just thinking about it now, I think I understand why so many people make super munchkin-y builds for D&D 5e. It's because that's the only thing you can get excited for when it comes to making your build. There's just not as many build path choices.
Yeah, it's like, it's hard to get excited for somebody like, yo, I got such a good build. What are they? Level 15 Paladin? Yeah, what else? Paladin? Like, there's nothing there. But, like, instead of, like, I have this compounding with this, it's all you can do. Because describing, like, the Tabaxi character you have is, like, that's just standard fare in Pathfinder. You just describe, like, a character is like, all right, yeah, what else can they do, though? Because, like, oh, that's, like, 1 or 2 levels worth of, like, feats. Like, that's the kind of the thing. It's, I don't know. You have to get weird and creative with your build in 5e to have anything of note to be said.
Yep. And, you know, that's just one of the unfortunate things. And it's like, you have to multi-class in D&D if you want to make an interesting character sometimes. Because otherwise you're just playing a class that gets something every like 4 to 5 levels. It's sad. And what's worse is if you want certain abilities, but you can't get them to like level 15, it's like, well, whatever I take in between now and then will just slow me getting the thing I really want. So, you know, and not only that, but there's just some meta builds out there. And they're really hard not to play sometimes because your character's just capable of doing so many good and interesting things. It's hard not to build that way.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that whole, like, just the inclination towards munchkinizing your characters is just one of the inherent flaws of D&D 5e. Like, in Pathfinder, because of the free archetype dedication rule, which everyone should use because it's really good, you can pick some non-combat based stuff because you're guaranteed to get your class levels anyway, and your class levels can make some really good and powerful builds innately. So if you want to be a pirate swashbuckler, like, the pirate archetype dedication is kind of garbage, but it's got some fun things, but you're still a swashbuckler. And you can still do a lot of really good things with the swashbuckler builds. So, you know, it's like the game is deeper. It provides more. There's more heft. You just can do more with it.
Yeah.
The only thing I will say is that D&D 5e, again, it's more casual friendly. And
it is so much easier to get someone to play 5e, because, like, as much as I love Pathfinder 2e, like the main group I have that plays like 5e with, I could not get them to do Pathfinder because they just, a lot of them, I mean, aren't also that bad, that great with 5e rules. I can't get them to play Pathfinder. Like, I don't know. It's sad, but like, yeah, it's not for everyone. Also, a lot of people just don't have the time or really the willingness to make the time to have like tabletop be their whole ass life like we do.
Yeah.
Some people just go home from a hard day at work and are like, all right, yeah, let's play a little bit of D&D. I want to punch a dragon.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah.
That's what we do, I guess. Yeah, Pathfinder Nexus, I don't know. It was never anything that I really was interested in the first place.
The last thing they've announced for it was they've been farther into early access in January 31st. They're still working on it, but haven't heard much of it since.
I trust Pathfinder when it comes to auxiliary systems, though. I mean, Archive of Nethys is really good. Path Builder is really good. So I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm sure it will be what people want it to be. I just not my thing. You know, I don't like look up like homebrew and like community made content all that often, really. So what would you say is your favorite aspect of a fantasy TTRPG such as 5e or Pathfinder when compared to other systems that don't incorporate fantasy? So it's our favorite aspect of fantasy?
Or at least like what do they do uniquely that's really cool? I'm the wrong person to ask for this because I am a sci-fi fanboy. I prefer sci-fi and other settings over fantasy. I like fantasy, but it's not my favorite.
You know, that's kind of hard. I would say what fantasy games do, or at least these two do that a lot of other types of games don't a lot, is enchantments. Honestly, I like enchanting gear with like magic-based principles and everything like that. It's not something you really get in other kinds of tabletop games. You can get like weapon mods or anything like that, but I like doing more fantastical things with that. But it's just like, one of the reasons why I like fantasy a lot is supernatural creatures. I like high impact, high intensity scenes with like massive amounts of power, you know? Like, I like anime fights. I like their intensity. I like what crazy things they can do, everything like that. Don't really get those in other kind of game systems. So I guess that's what I would say is the scale of fantasy just tends to be way higher when it comes to what can happen in a battle. And
I'll say that I'm a Warhammer fanboy, so that should be a pretty good answer. Yeah. I like planetary or like system-wide destruction scale, and I also personally believe that the setting of sci-fi allows you to tell a lot more different types of stories in different fun locations. Obviously, that's a pretty blanket statement. I'm overgeneralizing a lot on fantasy's sake. I just feel like, at least on my end, for when it comes to like writing stuff, I feel like I can tell more interesting stories in a sci-fi setting. Also because I care more about it in general.
Yeah. It's they're biased opinions in the end, so.
Yeah, exactly. I prefer the idea of planet hopping and like jumping around, seeing all that, instead of like dimensions, magic zones, pocket dimensions, all that shit.
I remember once I created a human rogue with a scout subclass and took the skilled feat. I ended up with 11 skills at start. We started at level 3. Yeah, I mean,
nice.
Like, yeah, there's some interesting 5e builds. And that's kind of just the thing, is it's like, if you're not trying to power game something in D&D 5e, you're not doing anything at all. Unfortunately. Because it's like, you have to try to accomplish something. Because D&D just doesn't allow you just to have things. About players refusing to go from 5e to Pathfinder, that's why I just introduced all my friends who have never played TTRPG straight into Pathfinder.
Fair.
You know, fair, but also, like, there's a lot of people who just, like, okay, right. I'm engaged. I'm someone who's well off in a relationship, so a lot of this is spoken about post the fact. But if you ever like met someone like a significant other and you wanted to try to get them into tabletop, if you start explaining like a lot of the nerdy things about it, a lot of times they would roll their eyes into their head or whatever. And so D&D 5e is just like, oh hey, there's this really cool thing, you know. Also, they put it on Critical Role. It's really fun. It's a game where you get to make your own character, and you can just do some really cool stuff. It's so much easier. And when you're actually making the character with them, rather than be like, all right, pick your class, ancestor, or pick your race, ancestry feat, now pick a background, class, you know, whatever other choices you might have at that level, depending on what class they are. It's a lot, but when it's D&D, it's like, all right, pick a race and pick a class. Because when you're level 1, you don't even get your subclasses typically. So they can get eased into picking a subclass in like 1 or 2 levels. It's very easy. Don't have to worry about overwhelming them with information. You're like, is there a class and race you like? All right, cool. We're good. You're thinking of Infinite Nexus is basically D&D Beyond for Pathfinder, I think. I never used Beyond. Well, then even more so, there's Path Builder already, so I don't know why you would use Nexus.
Granted, it is like for Android. If you don't have Android or want to install, like, what is it? Like, you have to download an application to use apps on your PC. 'Cause I know Devin does.
Yeah.
I don't know. If you're using Apple, maybe. Granted, also, Path Builder's not, I don't think, officially supported, so sometimes it's a little wonky.
I don't think so.
But, like, all their stuff's from Archive Mythos, so it's already freely available.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, if it's just functions better, I'll switch, is the kind of feel. Like, granted, I play all of my characters, like, on, like, my Pathfinder characters on my computer anyways. We played over Discord. So, like, I'll have it up on my computer anyways. I've definitely been like keeping little tabs on it, because if it's better, I'll just make that switch.
I'm a forever DM, so making characters is not high on my priority list.
Yeah.
And I also can just spontaneously make characters on the spot, so it's just not anything that I use.
Yeah.
Not anything I worry about, unfortunately. But yeah, I don't know. It's just there's so much that goes into tabletop, and when you're talking about like why one person plays something or another, I think what a lot of people really need to understand is that we're not all playing the same game, and we're definitely not all playing for the same reasons. And I think that's what's frustrating about tabletop gaming in general, is D&D 5e is, for most, just a gateway to narrative gaming, to narrative storytelling. The rules are designed to be easy to use, very simple. There doesn't have to be much decision making on the GM's behalf. And a lot of people get into it because they want to tell a cool story about their characters. They're not playing it because it's a game. They're playing it because they get inspired by something in the game and they want to make a cool character around it. I know a lot of, like, us, my friends, and what we do, we look at character builds as more as a way of playing a certain kind of character. Like, oh, what if I played, you know, I guess I'll talk about a character I'm going to be playing in the Monday game soon. But I wanted to make a Witchblade character. I wanted to make a character who uses a weapon and kind of deals with like curses and hexes and everything like that. So I made a Magus who's multi-class into witch a little bit, and I made him a beastkin, and his curse is that like his native form is a horrible monster, you know. And he's someone who's very chill, relaxed. He's gotten over it. He's managed to reduce his curse down to a level that he can be in normal society easily. He smells terrible, but that's because he and his family have been turned into essentially
Flesh warps?
Capoblepus.
Oh, I don't know what that is.
They're like these giant, like, death cows. They have a death laser eye and they smell terrible. And they're also generally super evil.
I would assume a laser death cow is pretty evil.
Yeah, if you look up, I'll type it.
I have no clue how to spell that, so you'll have to type
Capo.
that. It's like the Diablo 2 cows.
Catoblepus.
Because I know about the Diablo 2 cows.
That's how you spell it. And they are foul creatures. They emit a area of stench. The D&D ones don't have, or have 2 eyes. Some of them, like Final Fantasy, they have 1 eye. They get a death laser effect. They're also really just evil creatures. And his whole family are kind of like these hybrid form humanoid catoblepuses. And he's looking for a way to cure the disease, or the curse, not for his sake, but for his sister's sake. He has a younger sister who feels like she can't get married now because, you know, she looks like a terrible cow person. Mm-hmm. And he wants to help her out, and he's managed to subdue the curse. He's also gotten in contact with an entity called the Rune Mayor, who teaches him how to use rune magic and is hinting at the source of his curse, but won't tell him exactly what it is. Anyway, it's a Witch Magus hybrid character with a little bit of I don't even remember what my free archetype is for it. Because we play with the rules that if you use the free archetype, you can't pick a multi-class archetype for it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, sounds like an interesting character, dude.
But yeah, and well, I also made the character because another character got cursed into being a flesh warp. And so there's a little bit of narrative crossover with that.
Fair.
But that's the thing. The stuff I took for my build are not efficient build choices. They're for making the character cool, and he can do some cool things.
Yeah, that's the problem I have currently, because I'm still, in the far off future where I have the free time to join another campaign, which I would love if that happens soon. I want to make a swashbuckler gunslinger intimidation build so I can play my, now exorcist, my preacher gunslinger character.
Yeah.
Because I want to make a character that's whole thing is like the smiting of evil creatures, and also I am a sucker for gunslinger on Revenge Quest. I think it's a really fun character type.
This will be your second character now in that vein.
Yeah, listen, it's gonna go better than Arthur, because Arthur's whole point was that he also knew his Revenge Quest was an awful idea. He just did not believe he could get past it. So he made his bed and dealt with the fact that I'm probably going to die young. No, he actually knows. He knows, I'm going to die young.
Yeah.
So he's just seeing how much he can take down with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one is going to be a lot stronger. He wants to wipe out these bandits that laid waste to his congregation, and he wants to get revenge. He believes to put their souls at peace, he'll need to kill all he has got to kill 4 more of them. He's killed 2 in the in-between of when the campaign starts.
Oh yeah, I also took the summoner dedication on this character as well. I legitimately don't remember what my island was supposed to be. It's been a while because we've been in this kind of character arc for one of the other players where we're playing different characters. I am playing my a very generic but not generically played inventor dwarf with a crazy ass battle axe, and like we've been doing that for like the last like 5, 6 to 7 sessions. So I made this character before actually getting to play him, and before right when we were starting the new arc, because my current character is a little too lawful for the current party, and I'm just having a hard time playing the character, so I'm trying to adapt.
That's fair.
Summoner, huh? What Eidolon did I take?
I mean, a level 10 paladin, cleric, druid, sorcerer, warlock sounds like a fun time. Especially if they're a pacifist, no attacking spells. I mean, if they're a paladin, they shouldn't be using spells other than smite, but that's neither here nor there. I made the last 5e build I made that I want to try is straight up. I mean, it's straight up a ripoff of John Constantine, where the entire build is him grabbing as many acolyte feats as he can. He's a warlock who has just made a fuck ton of deals with things, and it's like, whatever. My soul's claimed by so many different shit. Like, well, you know, what happens. And his entire spell list is like, he's the most annoying motherfucker, like, in the general vicinity. He's just gonna make the enemy's lives a living hell. He's not great with damage, he's great with debuffs, and in, like, crowd control shit. And if he really needs to, he can summon a big demon. That was a pretty fun build, but I had to get a little wonky with it for it to function.
Yeah. And
because he has to get feats all the time.
There's an interesting build I just thought of. You can make a smite gun build in Pathfinder.
Go on.
There's a variety of ways you can do this, but if you're playing a Magus and you're playing the Starlit Eye, you can spell strike with a gun, and then you can take dedications into cleric, so you can get things like searing blast, or whatever it's called, searing light, so you can shoot searing light at someone. And you can take some stuff in Hunter, because Devin found out recently that for your, if you have the precision, well, maybe you have to start off as a hunter or as a ranger for it, because we found out that if you get the hunter's edge, or the hunter's edges for a ranger, just say the first time you strike an enemy for precision, you do extra damage. Which means you can do it with spells. So if you spell strike, you would do extra damage on top of it. And so if you want, I think what 5e Paladin offers, which is a you do have to start off as a ranger. So you have to be a ranger, you have to multi-class into Magus enough to get the spell strike. But you can do some pretty big one-shots with the build, where you just hit an enemy and they just explode, because you do so much extra damage on top of it.
Nice. I might have to try that. I do something kind of similar, King Neo. I mean, in general, I'm not the best at creating characters on the fly. A lot of times I come up with the core concept of something, and then I work backwards. Cam can attest. I like playing characters that I know every second they've been alive. Like, I have it planned out. I know exactly how what their story is up till the point where they got to the adventure. Because if I'm going to play something well, I need to know exactly how they think. So a lot of times I'll come up with a core concept and then work backwards. Like, or sometimes the other way around. Sometimes I come up with a dope backstory and I make a character around it. It's just I have to be inspired.
I'm kind of the same. I have to be inspired to actually make a character build, but I can just think of everything at once. So the second I become inspired, I kind of generally know what build I want to go for.
Yeah.
So like you give me 30 minutes and I'll have like a whole character done very typically. It's just
I
because...
will panic.
Sorry?
I will panic if I'm given 30 minutes to make a character.
Yeah. It's each their own. Everyone has their own strengths. I mean, if I would get Alex anything, is he very generally invests in into his character, like both like emotionally and mentally.
Yeah, if it's like for a long serious campaign, I will go all out. If it is for something shorter, I usually don't, because it is a lot of work to do that, and I will really do that for characters that I'm gonna play like a lot of. Granted, I will say I still think one of my strongest like short form characters. I think Calden was a pretty interesting character by like the last few sessions, because I got to realize how fucked up that man is actually.
Yeah, it was just one of those situations where you weren't put in the environment where he could thrive, and then when he was, it's like, oh shit, this is actually a good character.
Yeah.
So
those final few sessions where he straight up was just down to murder and supplant a guy, had no problems. Or the fucking bit where I got to slink through the crowd and then Assassin's Creed assassinate a man.
Yeah.
Holy fuck. Calden's great. He will show up again at some point. He will. But like only if Bep's character is going to be there. Because they need to meet again. I really liked our dynamic throughout that game.
I agree. It was really good. There is, and that's I think the thing with how we play tabletop, right? All very much based on what interesting narrative we can create for our characters. None of us really build for the sake of like, oh, look how much damage I can do in a round, or oh, look how unkillable my character is, unless those things are a part of what your character does. But even then, a lot of times we'll put like limitations on it. It's like, oh, we feel that's too powerful. He can only do it in this kind of circumstance or something like that. You know? Or he only does it for this purpose or whatever. And kind of back to my original point is tabletop in general is just, it's different for everyone. And so the community, like all the time I get people out there who say, I don't understand why D&D 5e is better. If only they would play Pathfinder, they would understand how much better this game is. And most of the time, a lot of those people would try Pathfinder and hate it. So it's like, what you like in a game system, what you think is good about the game system, is not always what's going to come across for everyone. And that's something that the tabletop community really needs to like understand in general, is we're all just not playing the same game.
No.
As frustrating as that is, we're all not playing the same game. And I think one of the big things with the channel I'm trying to like promote is I understand the numbers. I really understand the character builds. And as much as I dislike power gaming kind of game styles, I understand how to get there and what they do and why people like them. And in a lot of my videos, I do talk about the actual like mechanical power of certain characters. If you check out my character tier list video, which has been doing phenomenally lately, I speak on the roleplay and the mechanical benefits of each of the class. I want to make a channel that's not all just running numbers. I want to make a channel that's not all about how does the game make you feel. I'm making a game that as many people as possible can look at and like some stuff, hate other stuff, but overall like build a community around the aspect that it's a game that's so multifaceted that two groups can play the game in such dramatically different fashions, which I think is a great thing about tabletop, honestly. Very few games provide such flexibility.
It is a fantastic hobby to get into. It is very fun to hear everyone's like different perspectives on like what they get out of it, what the stuff they enjoy is, what their favorite characters they've played are. Because all the answers are so different for so many different people.
Yeah, and hell, even between Alex and I, you know, like one of the reasons why I think we work so well as like a duo for what we're doing on the channel is I like high anime aesthetic. Well, I don't like anime aesthetic. That's incorrect. I like high fantasy anime level like combat battles,
Yeah.
dynamicism. Alex likes a lot of, you know, grim, dark, gritty sci-fi kind of stuff. We have very different ideas on how to do things, and it makes the channel work really well.
It's the kind of thing of we're both people that there's a good amount of stuff we agree on a lot of things, often for different reasons. I really like it when we agree on something, but it comes about in a very strange way. It's like it's the kind of feeling of like mission failed successfully.
Yep.
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Or just alternately, we're both people that where it's like if told I disagree with your take on that, it's not gonna make a screaming match. Just all right.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Well,
like, we can just live and let live.
Back.
I mean, there's a good amount of stuff. I know, like, and it all stems down to, like, taste, aesthetic, and bias for a lot of us, where we just disagree on a few things. And, like, if I was in control, I'd go like this. And it's like, oh, okay, if I was in control, I'd go like this. It's like, all right, fair enough.
Yeah. Plus, Alex gives us a dash of irrationality that counteracts my logic brain sometimes.
I don't think rationally. It's boring. And also, I think from the gut.
Yeah, that's true. I don't. Everything's just caught up in my head. Also, Dead Phoenix, I actually love the idea. I'm a characters with amnesia, so that I force myself not to write a deep backstory about my character. That's actually really funny.
I actually have
an interesting solution to that problem.
Oh my god. I have a form of that on my Friday game, my Bard. Because my Bard essentially went on like a 3-4 year long bender. And he doesn't remember most of it, and so I can give our DM like open vibe of like, hey, feel free to throw random bullshit my way and have it come back to me, because we can always hand wave it and said he did it in that interim. And I don't know fully what happened. I know, for example, my Bard has broken out of a supermax prison that was like declared impenetrable. He accidentally took down a crime syndicate. He like, you know how people get blackout drunk and get a tattoo? He did the same, but for a house. Because I met up with the real estate agent for a house I like owe money on. Because like he just woke up outside of the house and didn't know where he was and left. My character was a statue for 6 months because of like a basilisk. You know, shit like that, where it's just we come up with, all right, that's canon. And it's really fun so like that way I can come up with stuff on the spot. But anything before that interim, I know exactly what he did, because it was a lot of writing, and I could not tear myself away, because if I did, the character would be less strong. But that's just me in general.
And I think that's also one of the reasons why we get along so well together is, despite a lot of the differences in opinion we're both really dedicated to the craft of the narrative.
Oh yeah.
Making an interesting character, making an interesting story. We both get excited about things that are like, oh, what if this, you know, or this story or that story or whatever. And, you know, that's why we play in the same games in general. But as co-hosts for Table Talk, and honestly, like, I always confide in Alex, like, hey, I want to make a video about this. Give me a good clickbaity title or something I could put on a thumbnail. Because, like, I genuinely don't think that way. So having someone like Alex along is very good for that.
I've just seen enough of it and studied enough of it where I feel like I can design a pretty good title. I can't for my movies, though. Good fucking lord. I suck at naming shit, but when it comes to, like, YouTube titles, I feel like I'm pretty good at it.
Yeah. And then there's times where Alex is like, oh, what about this title? And I'm like, okay, that doesn't make sense. I don't know how we would even like approach that topic.
But we don't
let's-
have to approach the topic. It just has to get the click, and then we don't stick on topic in this shit anyways. We just can have a title, talk about it for 5 minutes, and then move on.
Yeah, but if I can make the title make sense and not be necessarily super clickbaity, it's even better. So
True, but you got to sell your soul at some point.
I'm already going to be making tier lists. So tier lists and top fives. Yeah. It's just
that's the game, bro.
It's terrible. Hey, speaking of tier lists, how's that Lancer video?
Anyways, so I have a film to go prep for.
All right.
It's still open on my computer. I haven't touched it. I'm working on a video for the channel. It's a Lancer tier list video. We spent 5 hours recording.
Yes.
I am an hour in to the footage. But the problem is I'm working on one of the most important part of my major. And for the last 3 weeks, it has taken my life hostage. And so doing anything outside of
there was
working
a
on the film was
2-week
hard.
period where you were supposed to work on it before your school stuff.
It was a week. It was 1 week. I had 1 week to work on it, and I thought I could get it done. I did not. But that's also because my actual prep work ramped up faster than I thought it would. So it was on multiple ends. It will get done eventually.
It's your idea, it's your project. You do what you want with it.
I will get it done. It is just
I just like giving you shit over it.
Very fair.
Because I warned you. I was just like, that video is gonna take forever to edit. Yeah, I hope you know.
It also is taking forever because every once in a while I'll come up with a dumb meme idea and I'll make it.
Yeah, you said that too, and I was like, man. Just normal editing, just cutting out the bits in between and getting all the gaps out would take an eternity.
Yeah, and, I am also a strange perfectionist. I if I'm gonna make a shit post, I have to make it look good. Like the fucking, I am proud of the Chad caster. I am actually kind of proud of that.
Yeah, I can't wait to see some of the stuff you posted already for it was really funny. I just want to see it get done.
It will. I'll actually have the free time because, after Tuesday, I have no more school.
Yep.
Which is pretty fucking hype, honestly.
Yeah, it sounds like you need it now.
I would love the break. And also my director needs the break. That poor man has been running on fumes for a good month now.
Yeah.
That poor man. I told him in no uncertain terms, a few days ago, no. When you get home tonight and for tomorrow, you're taking a break. Because I am his assistant now for the shoot. I am working side by side with him to make sure, especially he's good. And I was like, no, you're sleeping tomorrow.
Yeah. So that's good. Yeah, that's good. Like I said, I just like giving you shit over.
Yeah,
because
totally.
It's your project.
Yeah.
Oh, no worries, Deaf Phoenix, because we're going to be ending here. Thank you all so much for watching. If you're watching post the fact, come join. These Table Talks have actually been getting more and more people into them. The community's been growing every day. Channel's been doing phenomenally lately. We have a Discord link down in the description below. You can join our Discord where we talk about all things tabletop, including war games like Warhammer 40k, which that one has been popping off a lot lately on the channel. As well as whenever I recruit for any of my games, the one-shots, especially the one-shots we do every month for looking into new game systems, I always recruit from my Discord first. And so far, 100% from my Discord. So if you have the chance to play with me and my friends, you can come down and join us. We're a pretty open group, pretty cool, and there's been very few problems on the Discord so far. I'm very proud of that.
It's been great.
Let's hope it stays that way.
Agreed. And I will say, if you at all talk Warhammer in the Warhammer chat, I will respond to you. I'm fiending for Warhammer conversations.
You have been a little bit more Warhammer hungry lately, I've noticed.
I don't know. I think it's because I just did a big tournament.
Maybe.
That I don't know. I've been a lot more. Also, purposefully, I've been consciously not bringing up Warhammer because I'm I talk about it way too much. But it's the problem when it's it is a thing I fucking love. It is something I think about a lot. It's something I'm very passionate about. And I just did a big tournament.
Yeah. I've even been getting into Warhammer more lately as well, and I've been able to at least participate in some
That's
of the
another reason.
conversation.
The fact that you now can understand my references. That's a feeling I had, and other Warhammer fans will get where it's like, oh my god, you'll get the reference.
Yep. Yep. We were talking about the Primarchs the other day, and that was
I
a lot of
did.
fun.
I did describe go through from memory all the Primarchs.
There was some stuff.
There's some gaps, but I from memory I do know the Primarchs. I know where the big one is. I know who they are, and I know where they are currently in like current lore.
As relevant as that is.
Some are more relevant than others.
Well, yeah, obviously.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Gilliman, technically.
Yeah, because
he's actually allowed to be in the lore at the moment.
Yeah, he's allowed. I will. I just want Rogaldorn and Jagatai and like lore. I just want them back.
I want TTS Rogaldorn.
I do too. I want TTS back in general, but we won't get that.
Anyway.
At least, if you guys haven't seen it, watch TTS Warhammer. It's really good. If you haven't, what is it? Hunters the Parenting is their new series, and it's fucking hysterical. It's a really fun TTS take on the Hearts of Darkness universe.
World of Darkness.
World of Darkness. It's in that universe, and it's funny to see their takes on the creatures and lore.
Yeah, World of Darkness is a very interesting series. I kind of hope we dive into World of Darkness at some point.
I think we should.
Stuff.
It'd be really fun. The one time I played Vampire the Masquerade was a good time.
It's fair. But we got stuff to do. I got food to cook. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and say good night. So
good night.
See you, everyone. Bye.